Welcome to Freezer Milk Podcast. I'm your host, Bridget, along with my husband, Chris. Weekly, we talk about being parents, what happened that week. It's basically our therapy session to vent out everything that we went through. We are boy parents. We have 3 boys, Enzo, Rhett, and Arlo. And if you'd like to get to know us a little bit better, you can check out our website, freezermilk.com, or follow us on Instagram at Freezer Milk Podcast. We also have YouTube and TikTok, Freezer Milk. Thanks so much for listening, and we hope you enjoy. Welcome back. Are you awake yet?
No. If you want to get anything done, you gotta do it early in the morning.
Yeah. Are you a grumpy bear?
Today, yeah.
Why?
I don't know, I'm just tired.
Okay. You didn't sleep good 2 nights ago either.
No.
Well, you switched your CPAP mask, so I think that's messing with you.
Maybe. I don't know, I'm in a lot of pain.
That's no fun.
Yeah.
Let's see. Enzo is back with his dad.
Yeah.
That was a really long fucking day.
That trip?
Yeah.
To fly him out there? Yeah.
So I flew from Virginia to Arizona and back in one day. Like we left, our flight was at 5 a.m. Like we left the house at 3:45 in the morning. And then I got home at, I think 9:30 at night. It was really long.
Yeah, I don't understand why you didn't make it a 2-day trip.
I feel like it was dumb to add in expenses of a hotel and food and all of that. I don't know.
You survived it.
I did. Yeah. It was nice because I had a couple hours of a layover, and my sweet friend Rose came and picked me up at the airport and drove me around to pick up different packages and get some mail we had in our business mailbox out there, and her and I grabbed lunch. So I feel like it kind of broke it up a bit versus just being at the airport.
Yeah.
I think if I was just at the airport the whole time, it would have been not great at all.
It's not at the airport on layovers, long layovers, and it's exhausting.
Yeah.
But it's done with, and he's back home
with his dad for a couple months, and we also had my cousin's wedding, because last time we talked was right before that.
Yeah, that's right.
And so
he did really well, man.
He did so good. Oh my god.
He was a trooper.
It was a long 2 days of the rehearsal dinner and then the wedding.
Yeah, because he was actually a part of the wedding party, so he had to be at all the photos, the rehearsal, the actual ceremony, the everything, and it was a lot. It was definitely a lot. So
can we just pause for a minute and appreciate that you wore a suit?
Yeah.
For the first time in 6 years, I saw you in a suit, and I need to find reasons to put you in a suit all the time now. Oh my gosh. It's a good thing you're snipped. We would have all the babies.
And we already have all the babies. And they're exhausting.
They are. No, Enzo did really good though. It was cute. He got to see his cousin and played Pokemon cards with him, and I think he had a good time. Mm-hmm. I was really proud of him. I got to see, they sent me a sneak peek of the wedding photos yesterday, so I got to see some quick photos of him. So handsome.
Yeah. He did well. He was up early, or he had to go to these things, and he was there for a couple hours, a long duration, and then he got home late, and it's the first time I'd ever seen him fall asleep in a car.
Right? In years?
So tired.
Yeah.
I was like, wow. Yeah, we kept him up kind of late, huh?
Yeah. It was a good time, though.
And then he had too much sugar.
He did.
At the restaurant. And
the rehearsal dinner, yeah.
Didn't make him feel too well, so.
We realized, we don't
give him sugar.
We don't really,
we don't give him extra sugar.
Yeah, so we don't, purposely cut out sugar. We're not no, you can't have that, it has sugar. We don't keep stuff with lots of added sugar stocked. We don't have juice in the house. We don't have, sweet treats and, sugary cereal. We just don't keep it stocked in the house.
Well, not ice creams or anything
like
that.
Yeah, and so, sugar on the regular, his body's just not used to. He has it, peanut butter and carbohydrate sugar. Early mornings, late nights get me. But the rehearsal dinner, he had a soda, and then the waiter brought him a second soda, and I was like,
oh man, it's gonna be a little much because he's gonna have dessert on top of that.
And then he had dessert, and he got a baked Alaskan, which is
way too much sugar.
Way too much sugar. And this poor dude, and he's at an age where, when we can, we let him make his own decisions on things and learn natural consequences of it. And sure enough, he had his 2 sodas and the baked Alaskan. He had dinner too, but his stomach started not feeling good. He had to go back inside and throw up.
Yeah.
So it was really funny. His dad had texted yesterday and was like, "I'm so proud of Enzo." And I was like, "Oh yeah, what happened?" He's like, "Well, I gave him a piece of candy after he finished his schoolwork." And then they were having dinner and they offered him ice cream. And Enzo said, "No, I don't want to have that much sugar so close together." And
I guess he learned his lesson.
I was like, I'm proud of him for learning his lesson.
Well, a lot of kids wouldn't.
Yeah.
They'd be like, "Oh yeah, let's do this again."
Right. Enzo was like, "No." I think we did a good job of kind of explaining to him when he threw up, like, hey, this is because of having, so much sugar in a short amount of time. Your body's just not used to it. Yeah. Poor dude. Mm-hmm. It was so funny.
Yeah.
We also had, Arlo got sick.
Yeah, which was really kind of concerning for a couple days there.
Because, he doesn't really get sick. Like, he gets cold or allergies or, a little bit of a cough here and there. But,
this one was really obvious.
He got, a stomach bug, I guess. It was crazy, though, because he woke up in the morning on Saturday. And I got him out of his crib, and I was like, I think I got him up too soon. I don't think he's ready to wake up, because he was, just laid his head on my shoulder, super lethargic. And I was like, wow, dude, I got you up too soon. I'm sorry. You're still tired. And then he ended up being like that for an hour. And then he started vomiting profusely, everywhere. Mm. And we were like, oh, dang, this child's sick. So Saturday was not great. He did okay with eating and drinking a bit. But then Sunday and Saturday we went back and forth. Do we take him in? Do we not take him in? Because you just worry. It's a baby. They're under 12 months old. Dehydration, blood sugar, all of it. But he stopped puking by Saturday afternoon. I had a little bit of GI issues going on. But Sunday, this dude did not want to eat or drink anything. Mm-mm.
No milk, no foods, nothing.
No baby food, no formula, no pumped milk. No water, no Pedialyte. We would try to Pedialyte with an oral syringe. Wouldn't do that. Just kept spitting it out. So and he wasn't vomiting Sunday. Still a little bit of GI issues, but Sunday, I think by 3 p.m., he'd only peed twice the entire day. And I was like, eh.
Yeah, but we also started to notice that he was acting drunk.
Yes, yeah, and that's concerning because normally that's a sign of low blood sugar. And he seemed very, very dehydrated at this point. And we were like, yeah, I don't feel good about this. So I went to urgent care. And urgent care basically was like, well, so if he doesn't have a third pee diaper, he needs to go to the ER.
So we're like, fuck that.
We're like, why are we going to wait for this? We're up here by the ER. He's not drinking anything. He's not going to have additional pee. So took him to the ER. And I'm really glad I did.
Yeah. Because
I got there and I kind of explained everything. We got taken back pretty much right away. It was a really great ER experience for being a first time taking a kid to ER out here. He got taken back right away. I explained everything to him and they're like, great, let's grab vitals and let's get a blood sugar on this kid. And blood sugar came back too low. So immediately I was like, awesome, made the right decision here. We're in the right hands. But I texted you and told you his blood sugar was like too low, and you kind of panicked a little bit.
Yeah, it's a little nerve-wracking when they're that young. You know, I don't even like it when Rhett gets sick, because he brings shit home from daycare all the time. But when they're babies, like, that's just a whole different deal.
It just escalates so quickly.
Yeah.
But they got it under control. They gave him some sugar water on a pacifier, and then they decided to try doing like an anti-nausea first, because they're like, it could be, they're like, this happens sometimes with babies, that if they've been vomiting the day before, they'll really feel nauseous, but they can't tell us that. And so they don't want to eat or drink anything because they feel really, really nauseous.
So, like, let's try an anti-nausea before we, like, stick him with an IV and, like, cause him that traumatic experience of, like, trying to get a line in him when he's dehydrated, because that's going to be really hard. And then see after, like, 30 minutes if he'll eat and drink. And it totally fucking worked.
Yeah.
But it was really funny. So they didn't have... They give, like, apple juice and Pedialyte, and it was in one of their bottles. And he was like... He's so picky with his bottles. He was like,
we have bottles here that he won't use.
Right?
Like, that we try to still use with him, but he won't use them.
He was like, this bottle's weird, guys. I don't know what's going on. So then I had a bottle with me, so I, like, dumped it out, and because it was getting old anyway, the formula. So I, like, dumped it out, and, like, cleaned the bottle, and then, like, poured it into, like, his bottle, and he was like, yeah, okay.
Try this.
I can get down with this. But it was just so funny that he was just, no, I don't like this bottle. No, thank you.
I've got my bottles, and I have my bottles for a reason.
But it was so, like, everyone in the ER was just like, oh my gosh, he's so adorable.
Like, well, they're probably not used to seeing babies all the time.
Yeah, I think babies are fewer and far between that come in the ER.
They get all the old people. Mm-hmm. It's nice to see something little.
Yeah.
Young.
Well, this is the pediatric side too, so they're used to seeing kids. They just don't see
babies.
Baby babies
don't typically have those kind of issues.
Right? But, and that's where too it was kind
of like you said, you start messing with dehydration. You know,
it escalates so quick. Like, you get dehydration, and then blood sugars drop, and then you start running into, like, super scary risks between those two. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it was good that you got him in.
They got him stabilized.
He turned around pretty quickly.
Yeah. They got him stabilized and moved where they needed him to be from blood sugar. And
he wasn't perfect Sunday, or Sunday after you got home, he wasn't perfect. But Monday, he did pretty well. He bounced back Monday.
Yeah, he was coming back.
And then yesterday, he was really good. So
yeah, I think he's, like, past it. I was worried because I got vomited on, like, multiple times.
And then you started to get...
I got really nauseous on Monday. Yeah. And I was worried it was going to progress because I'd gotten vomited on multiple times. And let's be honest, like, typically if you get vomited on, you're going to get sick. Yeah. But I just had pretty severe nausea, and then for a couple hours, like, mid-afternoon, because the morning I was fine. It hit, like, out of nowhere. It was, like, super intense. And then by Tuesday morning, I was good. Couldn't complain.
'Tis the season.
Rick gave himself a black eye.
Yes, he did. It looks pretty bad, too. I don't even remember what he did.
He was jumping or dancing on his freaking tower.
Oh, that's right. He's got a toddler tower, and he likes to, like, spin in circles while the music plays on the TV. And he stumbled a little bit and hit his hip and his face on the side of the toddler tower.
Like the side rails that keep him from falling out of it. So it did its job, but he, like, caught it right on, like, the bottom of his eye socket.
Yeah, he's so brutal. He's so hard on himself.
I was like, when he first did it, I'm, like, feeling his cheekbones, like, do I feel anything? Like, does it feel symmetrical? Is there anything, like, severely dented in or crushed? Because, like, at the end of the day, like, your eye socket's actually pretty fragile. Yeah. And you can definitely, like, break it and all that, but he bruised out immediately on that side, and it just got worse and worse. He has this, like, straight line of bruise across his face. I'm like, oh my god, child.
Kid's always trying to hurt himself.
Yeah.
I hope Arlo's not like that. He's starting to get that way, though. Like, because he's starting to try to walk more. Like, he really just wants to. He started crawling, and we were like, oh wow, he's like full crawling, and then sitting up, and then now all of a sudden he's like.
He only started sitting up when I was in Florida, like 2.5 weeks ago.
Right, and now he sits up all the time and
pulls himself to a kneel position.
And he pulls himself up on the couch, tries to try and stand. He really wants to stand, and I'm like, I told you by Christmas he'll be walking. Just mark my words, he's gonna be walking just in time for us to put up a Christmas tree.
Right. And then figure out how to anchor that so he can't pull it over.
Right.
These kids. Ugh.
It'll be nice. I mean, I'm part of me is like, I'm really going to miss him young. Yeah. But part of me is like, him walking will be a little bit better. Only because, it gets him off the ground. And, he's constantly at our feet. And Rhett's towering over him, dropping stuff on him, and, you know, just being a toddler
and a big brother.
Yeah, and then he can start walking. I don't know.
It'll be it though. Like, it'll be done then. You won't have a crawling baby ever again.
It's not true. We had that discussion yesterday.
OMG.
Hey, I'm only 35.
That's man over here. If you don't know, because you haven't listened to our previous episodes, he got a vasectomy after Arlo was born. No, before. No, after.
It had to have been after.
Yeah, it was right after. Arlo was born, because we were like, yeah, we're done. Like, we're done. Now he's like, you know, I could do another one. Like, what?
I'm going to get my girl that I always wanted, you know?
Terrible.
I think you got it in you.
Just gonna have that super swimmer that gets past the vasectomy somehow.
I mean, there is ways around it.
I'm not getting younger.
Yeah, that's why the time is now.
OMG, so expensive.
No, I don't think I'd want another 2 under 2. You know what I mean? Or I don't.
Oh, so you're gonna wait till I'm 40?
Yeah, I'll wait until you're 40 years old.
And
That medicine's changed a lot. You know?
He'd be like, let's do it now. We got all of them pretty much in school.
This is kind of a miracle, because if you remember correctly, when we first met, I wasn't having any kids. And I was dead set on that, and you didn't push that or anything like that.
I had accepted it. I was okay with that.
Yeah.
And you changed your mind.
I changed my mind, and we had Rhett, and then we had Rhett, and he was a fucking shit, and it was the worst experience ever from like 0 to 6 months. And once we got past the 6 months, I was like, hey, you know what? I got this. And then Arlo comes along, and he's a sweet angel baby.
He's such a sweetheart.
I'm like, fuck, I could definitely do this a third time.
Oh, God.
I don't know why we do this to ourselves.
We'd probably get another Red Holden.
We probably would. It would probably be worse.
Arlo is such a sweet... Like, if he was someone's first kid, oh my God, they would have so many.
Yeah, you're right.
He is like a super sweetheart. He's a good boy. He's growing up so quick. Like, we got him this sleep sack because his room gets really cold. Like, we have the heat on because it's cold in Virginia now. It drops into what, like the 40s and 30s at night right now? Probably 40s.
No, yeah, I mean, I don't think we've hit the 30s yet, but
in the 40s at night.
40s at night, yeah.
And his room just gets really, really cold. He has 2 exterior walls, and I think that's part of why. But so we got him the sleep sack because we're like, it's really cold in his room and he can't have blankets yet and all that. He's too little, so we got him this like zip up sleep sack. I think he fucking loves it.
No, it's probably cozy as shit. I saw it and I was like, man, I hope they make those for adults. I want one.
But like, he's getting so grown.
It's basically like a sleeping bag with armholes.
Yes, pretty much. What was it, yesterday? I went to go put him in it, and I normally like lay him on the changing table, and then I like take his arm and like put it through the armholes. But he like was holding his bottle, and he like let go with one hand and stuck his arm out to like wait for me to put it through the armhole, and I was like, oh, you're growing up. Like, just you knowing to do that is like no longer a baby mannerism. Uh-huh. And it like made me so sad in that moment of like, like you're understanding what to do. Mm-hmm. And like you have the body control to understand. Like, oh, I know that I need to let go of my bottle. She's gonna put my arm through one side, and then he switched hand and let go of his other one. Like, it just made me so like, oh, you're growing up too quick, baby.
Yeah, well, like I told you, before you know it, you're gonna be walking them both down the aisle, giving their hand to somebody else.
Terrible.
What are you gonna do then? Like,
you always try to make me cry with that.
You're gonna be an empty nest. It worked once.
Yeah, and I'm fully aware.
You're gonna be an empty nester. That is a thing, you know. And then we're going to have to figure out what to do.
We're going to be traveling.
We're going to be looking at each other like, now what? Like, I don't know what to do with my hands.
We're going to be traveling. It'd be great.
Oh, yeah, we're going to be traveling. You guys, good luck. Life's difficult. Have fun.
I hope they travel with us. Like,
I'm sure they will up to a certain point.
Like, we'll definitely have our own trips too, but I do hope that we get a chance to, like...
It's normal, for kids to get to a certain age and they're just kind of like, yeah,
I don't want to hang out with my parents.
Pretty much. I mean, one thing that we had always talked about is always offering to do a weekly dinner or something.
Yeah.
Of sorts with our kids, just so that which is something I think we should definitely do, whether we eat out or we eat in or whatever the case may be. It's not something our parents did. After, I mean, I moved out when I was 17. You moved out when you were 17, 18.
Yeah.
After that, we stopped having dinners. The only dinners we had were the forced ones at fucking holidays, and even then I wouldn't show up sometimes, so... Like, I don't want that for them. I want them to always know that they can come to our house for a warm meal or whatever the case may be,
Yeah. I'd like to figure out, too, like, if they're, like, they're out of state or something, like, figure out, like, if we fly out once a month and, like, take them to dinner or something like that, just to make sure they feel loved and supported.
Yeah.
Speaking of parents... You and your dad had a big talk, and there's some scariness that happened.
Yeah, I mean, that was a very unprompted talk, but yeah, I hadn't really talked to my dad since, I want to say, January 23. So we're almost
a year?
Almost a year. Me and him just hadn't been too close. After my sister passed, he kind of...
Your half-brother.
And my half-brother passed away. It was a lot on him.
And we talked about that. Like, it makes sense as... Like, he lost 2 out of 4 kids.
Yeah, in a matter of 2 weeks.
50% survival rate on children.
Yeah.
It makes sense putting ourselves in his shoes, like, why you would withdraw and be like, I don't want to, get more attached and bond more with the ones that I have left because, like, I... am in grief and now I'm terrified. Right. What if I lose them too? Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, anyway, but it wasn't on the greatest of terms that we actually got to speak. It was Thursday night.
You were putting Rhett to bed?
I was putting Rhett to bed and my phone rang and it was sitting on the kitchen table and I asked you who it was and you said it was Mark. And Mark is my sister's husband and I don't get calls from Mark. No. So I knew immediately.
You're like, answer the phone.
I was like, something's not good. Yeah. So it's not like, it's 7:45, 8 o'clock at night. I don't get these calls. So she answered the phone. I was putting Rhett to bed, and I'm sitting upstairs just trying to figure out. I'm like, which one is it? Is it my sister or is it my dad? Because I've had these phone calls before.
Yeah.
And part of me was like, I know it's my dad. Is Mark going to tell me that my dad's gone or something like that?
Because he's mid-70s.
I mean, he's 76 years old and his health isn't the greatest. So, comes to find out that he was in a car accident. And he has an issue with AFib. Yeah. And his AFib acted up and his heart quit. He passed out at the wheel and he hit another car head on. Yeah. And... we, for the life of us, we didn't have a whole lot of information to go off of other than he was in a head-on collision and that he was okay. He's not the type of person to give out a lot of information.
And he was, super medicated.
He was medicated, and he was just, a lot of shit going on. So we didn't really know.
He got medevaced.
Yeah, he got medevaced to the hospital. We didn't know where. So you did a bunch of fucking crazy research to try and figure that out. You called your cousin, they reached out to the troopers, and...
Dude, my cousin came in fucking clutch.
Yeah, got the case number, and... got everything, got all the information we needed, and we knew exactly where he was, which fortunately he was an hour from us. Yeah. But we kept trying to get a hold of him get a hold of the hospital, which it's a trauma unit. They're busy. They don't answer phones. So, but he finally had called me to kind of explain to me what was happening. He was pretty coherent, I guess. And originally, my sister's out of town. And so that night, I decided to go down there.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? It was 9:30, 10 o'clock, I believe.
Yeah.
So I drove the hour down to Baltimore or Maryland area and found him in the hospital and got to have a long, much needed conversation with him. But I don't know if it gave closure to our relationship or it, brought a new element to it or what, but it
brought some peace.
It brought some peace to because again, I don't think either one of us really knew what the other one did.
Yeah.
You know, because he met Rhett once. We went out. We came out here last November, and the sole purpose was for him
to meet Rhett.
Yeah. And we came out, and because he lives with my sister, and the whole time we were here, he was just
not engaging
with Rhett. He sat on the couch on his phone, not interested in his grandson, not really interested in any of us, and that kind of hurt.
You were really mad.
I wasn't too happy about it.
Yeah.
And it kind of pissed me off. I know me and him have had our differences for sure, and I was not an easy kid, and I can appreciate that now. And it's interesting that it's funny that it takes this long to figure that out and have your own kids. But I was not a good kid. Yeah. Let's put it that way. I was just really hard for him, but I never stopped loving him. You know, I never stopped appreciating what he had done for me.
Probably didn't express it very well.
No. And at the same time, I was just really excited for him to meet Rhett, you know, because I was the guy that no one thought, was going to survive my life, let alone have children.
Yeah. And be a great fucking dad.
Yeah, you know, and it was just hard. It was really hard to see him act like that. And then we had Arlo. And he knew we were going to have Arlo. And he still to this day hasn't met Arlo. Mm-mm. And I'm like, you know, Arlo's almost in December is going to be a year. You know, I get it. He's elderly. He can't travel well. But doesn't mean you can't pick up the phone and do a Zoom or do FaceTime or try, you know. And it was... So it was, Arlo was born to the end of December, and my dad stopped talking to me at the beginning of January.
Yeah.
Or we, just stopped communicating. So I was like, you didn't even really ask me about, Arlo or anything like that. And that was hard. I was like, man, this is not just one, this is two now.
Yeah.
You know, and I would send him...
It's hard not to take it personal.
And I would send him photos and stuff like that, and he would just...
respond, okay.
Yeah, really just not interested. And I was like, man, I don't want all of this negativity surrounding my sister to be a damper on the good things that are happening in my life. Yeah. So we just kind of stopped talking. And so I spent, a good amount of the evening there and the hospital with him, and he was coherent and okay, and got to have some pretty good heartfelt conversations, and he got to open up to me about some stuff, and honestly I appreciate that, because there's a lot of things he's been harboring for years that he has I guess he has felt that he hasn't been able to communicate with me or anybody else, because kind of how our society dictates that men should be. You got a fucking problem, you need to nut up. That's kind of what our society is with males, and that's not fair. I mean,
Aren't you so glad we're trying to raise our voice differently?
Yeah, I mean, I try to be I'm not perfect all the time, but I try to be open about what's bothering me. It might take me a minute to get around to it, but I typically come back to you and say, hey, this is what's going on.
Yeah.
And I've learned over the years that, because I was just like him, I would just harbor everything in. I was like, you know what, you need to nut up. You're a man. Don't cry, that kind of shit. And it's not, it's not healthy.
I feel like you and I have worked really hard to get to where we're at with our communication.
Oh, yeah. And it's taken a lot of work. It takes work day in, day out. We are not perfect every day. I am horrible sometimes at communicating.
So am I, because I speak gibberish and mumble.
You mumble and you speak you speak really low tones, and I can't hear you. And, I was in the trades for years, so my ears don't work as well, and yada, yada, yada. But for the most part, we communicate, But in this situation, I was just like, man, it was a relief for him to finally open up. I mean, It literally took him being in the hospital to do so, but at the same time, we got some peace in our relationship. Where that goes from here, I don't know, but at the same time, I'm glad I went. I stayed there till almost 3:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
with him. I just didn't want him to be alone, you know. So it was good. It was a good conversation. Obviously, he's still in the hospital, but
all cardiac related though. Like there was no other issues.
No, I mean he just got
everybody else involved was okay, which is so good.
Mean, his truck's no good, but
yeah, you know.
He's got some bumps and bruises, some seatbelt burn, some whiplash, you know, that kind of thing. But he's got a heart thing going on. But I mean, he's 76 years old, you know, and I'm just thankful that I was at least given that opportunity to have that conversation with him. You know, no matter what happens from here.
When you came home the next morning, when you talked to me about it, you were saying like you felt like you were meant to go and just listen.
Yep.
And that
wasn't something I was good with him for a long time. I wasn't able to just sit there and listen to what he had to say.
Yeah.
I was never that. I call it age or wisdom or experience or whatever. But this trip was more, hey, you need to just listen to what he has to say.
I'm so proud of you. Like, just in the 6 years that, you know, we've been together, you have grown so much. And it's so awesome to, like, see the growth that you've done from communication and learning about being able to open up yourself. Like, when we first started dating, like, that was still a struggle. Mm-hmm. You know, like, you'd have to, like, go for a drive because you couldn't talk about your feelings.
Yeah, every once in a while I need to step away.
Like, but like you recognize it too now though, and you'll be like, hey, like I need a couple minutes to cool off.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. But also like the learning to just listen, you know, having to, I think with all the hormonal pregnancies and whatnot, like you had to learn with me, like, hey, like sometimes I just need to sit back and let Bridget just get it off her chest. Mm-hmm. And just sit back and listen. And you've really evolved in that skill in the last 6 years. And maybe that was all leading up to being able to just sit back and let your dad get off his chest what he needed to get off his chest.
Yeah, well, I agree.
So I'm so proud of you because like I do see that and I recognize that. And it just makes me so proud to see the growth that has happened in you.
It was something funny. Well, it was, I don't know how funny it was, but he was making mention of... He was asking me, he said, do you guys still do your podcast? And yeah. I said, yeah. I said, you know, we've been doing it pretty much religiously every week. Sometimes we miss weeks or whatever, but for
2 years?
2 years now. And he said, yeah, I listened to one episode from like in the beginning, you know, like of, it was like, I don't know, around Christmas or something like that. And he's like, I only listened to one, and he's like, I felt like you were bashing your family. And I said, I was just kind of hearing him out. And I said, you know, honestly, I don't remember that. I don't remember this episode, but I'm sure it might have come across that way.
It was after spending 4 days in Flagstaff.
It was after spending 4 days in Flagstaff with my family, who you put all of us in a house together with all the kids.
And we're very different, and we have food restrictions that we
have food restrictions. Brett was young, like young.
8 months. I think he was about Arlo's age.
Yeah, I mean, he was crawling, like barely walking, and, you know, we are used to our house with everything gated off and safe, and we have all my cousins there. We have, you know, they're younger, and
chaotic.
It was very chaotic. And me and you, like, I had to work. I literally sat in the back room at the poker table with my laptop set up so I could work, because I didn't have the week off like everybody else, right? And it was snowing, like we got snowed in, and it was beautiful, don't get me wrong, but it was a lot for somebody who is not used to that, who is used to our little life, our little bubble. So I'm sure that the conversations that we had could have come off.
If you listen to one out of context, like, absolutely.
Yeah, but and a lot of the reason why we decided to do this podcast is, and we've said it time and time again, this is our form of therapy, relational therapy, and being able to vent. Being able to vent. Just because we're frustrated in a moment doesn't mean that is how we feel indefinitely. We just, yes, we have trouble. We have troubles in our relationship. We have troubles with our parents. We have troubles with our siblings. We have trouble with our kids. And
trouble with each other.
And honestly, that's what this whole thing is about, is being able to voice it. Because a lot of the times we don't, and we just hold that in.
Yeah.
And then you have all of these other underlying things, these issues, and you haven't discussed the real thing, which is, the struggles, the daily struggles of being a parent, being a friend, being a kid yourself, having parents. Like, you don't discuss it. And that's what forces people apart. Yeah. Resentment. And that's not where we wanted to be. So I listened to what he had to say as far as, hey, I stopped listening after that because it felt like you were bashing your family. Well, guess what? I might have come off as I was bashing my family, but my family can be difficult. And I want to talk about that. At least I'm discussing it and I'm not just hiding that.
And at the end of the day, like, airing frustrations is a super healthy thing.
Yeah.
But as someone who grew up with the you don't talk about it, you just suck it up, it's understandable that to him, he would be like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe that they would say anything negative.
I mean, I would really hope that he would make a conscious decision. And I told him this in the hospital. I said, you need to listen to other episodes. Yeah, like, there's other episodes that you could listen to, like birth stories, or just
listen to all that.
Listen to this one.
Get to know us.
Listen to this one. We're not I'm not bashing anybody. This is life. Yeah. Life is messy. Yeah. And it's not perfect all the time, and it's not that I don't love my family. I do. But they can be a pain sometimes, and it can be a little much.
Like, we choose to pick kind of our family. Like, we have the family that we're born into, and then we have the family that we create, and the ones that we pick to, be around our kids that actively want to and want to be involved in our lives. Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-mm. So it was, that was, I would say that was the only real negative from our conversation, was the fact that he basically judged us off of one podcast.
I mean, we talked about that. I think you and I actually talked about that before we started podcasting, is where, like, there's going to be a point where, like, people we know or family is going to hear this, and they might not love it. Yeah. What they hear. But at the end of the day, it's stuff that if they gave us the option and the opportunity
to have the conversation to them, I would. Absolutely. Yes.
And that's just it. Like, so. And being frustrated about food restrictions not being respected, that's normal.
It was just a lot. There was that trip was, there was a 3,000 square foot cabin in the middle of nowhere, northern Arizona, and there was 10, 15 of us in this house.
That was a lot.
And I would say half of them were kids, and we were all trying to cohabitate, and this coming from two individuals that are very
I don't say like we're secluded, but we're like...
We are secluded. We were at the time because Rhett was 8 months old. We had just gone through
COVID.
We had gone through COVID. You had COVID. We had him he was just getting over like stomach issues, and like
I had just miscarried a couple weeks prior.
Yeah, we were going through a lot of stuff, so we were very secluded. I was traveling a lot for work.
Yeah.
So that was the only, I think, the only bummer from the whole thing. But and I told them, I said, look, man, like, this is one episode. We have done how many now? 100.
Right. If you want to get to know
us, there's 99 more that you can listen to, and you're going to hear some shit talking. So I'm sorry.
And you're going to hear our struggles with each other too, as a couple. And our struggles as parents. And
I was like, but there are some episodes in there that are really, really important and kind of show us who we really are. And you should listen to those.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was all in all, he's healthy. He's healthier. Still in the hospital, but they're working through that. It was a good talk. It was much needed, I think, and I'm glad I had it.
Yeah.
So, and kudos to you, because you're the one that kind of forced me to go.
It's so funny. So I talked with my aunt about that, because I always go back to, I had meningitis in 2011, and I got hospitalized for like 14 days with meningitis, and I ended up switching hospitals. I was at one hospital, and then I technically got discharged, and I was discharged like 4 days, and then my meningitis like flared up really bad, and I was back in the hospital. But I was alone. And we've talked about this, I think, on one of my, parent episodes, or about my life before you and stuff, that traumas that shaped me. I was probably like 90 minutes away from where my parents lived. My mom didn't work, but they didn't come down to see me because my mom didn't want to deal with traffic, even though she didn't work, and she could have come down at any time. And like, I was alone. And I was
young and scared.
Yeah, because I was like, I don't know, 21, 22, 21, something like that. And my aunt, who was 2.5 hours away from the hospital, and she's the aunt that is, an hour from us now, and the aunt that comes and helps out when I'm in Florida and helps me when you're traveling. Like, she's a great, amazing, like, bonus grandparent, basically. She drove down the 2.5 hours to come stay with me at the hospital because she was like, absolutely not. Like, family shows up.
Yeah.
That's.
And that wasn't something I was used to.
Yeah. And she was like, this is not okay. Like, family shows up, and we're here, and we support, even if we have relationship issues, or we're not close, or whatever it may be. Like, you don't fucking leave someone alone in the hospital who can't advocate for themselves because they're hopped up on, painkillers in the hospital, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's a hard no. And so it's funny, I was talking with her, and I was like, I explained to her about your dad, because, like, she's a religious person, so I was asking her to, like, send up prayers and all that. And I explained to her, like, you went down there, but at first you're like, because your dad's very much like, hey, no, you don't need to come down, it's fine. And you're like, Bridget, like, what do you think I should do? And I was like, I think you gotta go. Like, you gotta show up.
Yeah.
He shouldn't be alone. The dude was freaking medevaced.
Well, I mean,
and he can't advocate for himself, and he's not gonna be.
It had nothing to do with me feeling like, hey, even being the slightest, like, hey, should I go?
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with him and my relationship with him. It had to do with the fact that I was driving down to Maryland, which is an hour on main freeways at 10 o'clock at night.
And we're normally in bed by that point.
I'm normally in bed by 9:30.
Yeah.
I was already tired.
And I was, like, super worried about that. I was, like, very anxious.
I'm still not very familiar with the roads out here.
And you're like, I got small kids. Like, if something happens to me, like, this is not good.
Right. After he told me not to come.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there thinking, like, should I be doing this? Like, should I be risking this?
Yeah, at risk.
Right. But at the same time, I'm like, yeah, something told me you need to go.
Yeah.
Other than the obvious, which was you, but something else was just like, you need to go down for your family.
Which is so interesting, because when Denise and I were talking about it, and I was saying, like, you were like, yeah, because I kind of said, like, I think you gotta go,
I was like,
and I was like, look, I'll get you a hotel if you need one, whatever, so you're not driving back tired, but, like, I think you gotta go, like, you gotta show up. But I was talking with my aunt about it, and she was like, he probably wasn't raised with that. She was like, your parent Bridget didn't even do it. She was like, I had to do it, but I wanted you to. And she's like, I've always done that for her kids, her boys, where she was like, look, no matter what, like, family shows up, I'm going to be there. And she, has shown up here to help us with the kids, or, showed up to watch Enzo at martial arts, and, like, just the family.
She's shown up a lot here.
Yeah, she, like, really embodies, like, family shows up. And it was interesting to have her say and recognize that, like, oh, like, you didn't grow up with that, Bridget, from your own parents, and Creed didn't grow up with that from his parents. And so that's why it is more foreign, like, when people do show up for you guys.
Yeah.
But I think that's one of our big hopes, like, in the, part of, like, wanting to do, if the kids are local and they're adults, like, offer weekly dinners, like, we want to show up.
It was interesting because a couple years back, I think it was like 3 years ago, when my sister passed away, we were in South Carolina.
Yeah.
And we had just gotten there. Like, we were fresh there.
We've been there like 24 hours.
Not even 24 hours. And we had 4 days, 5 days there, or something like that. Because we were thinking about relocating there at some point. But we got the news. So I got the news that my sister had passed away, and it wasn't even a second thought for you. Yeah. You immediately changed our flights and turned us around and got home. But I was like, do I need to go home? I mean, she's gone.
Yeah, like, what can I do?
What can I do now? Like, that was my thought process. Like, yeah, it's sad, but I'll have to deal with it when I get home anyway. Should I enjoy it? And you're like, look, Chris, like, you need to go home. Your sister just passed away. Like, we literally just got off the plane and we're getting on another plane and we're going home.
Yeah.
And that was like, okay, like, this is a thing. Like,
people do this.
You do this. You show up for your family. Like,
yeah.
But you're right. I was not accustomed to that. I was in the hospital for a fucking cut on my hand. Like a bad cut, but I mean,
you tried to get septic.
Yeah, that turned me septic, and no one showed up. Me and you had barely started dating. 3 weeks.
Yeah,
we had just barely started dating. You literally slept in the hospital with me when I was like fucking dying of septic. And
because you shouldn't be alone,
right? And
my aunt if you
hadn't been there, I don't think anybody else from my family would have shown up.
No.
And my mom lived there.
Yeah.
She might have shown up a couple days later when it was convenient, but she wasn't about to show up at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So, and again, that's not fair for me to say. I don't know anymore. Maybe she would have. Who knows? But I'm just not accustomed to that. I'm not accustomed to and being with you for somebody that parents don't show up. You are very big on it.
Denise is like 100% like responsible for that in me, my aunt. And that was, you and I talked about my aunt and uncle and like family were a big reason why we chose to bring the family out here. Mm-hmm. Is because they do show up. And that's something that we wanted our kids to be raised around is, family that shows up for them and celebrates the wins with them and, gets excited about things with them. But she's 100% responsible for that being ingrained in me because of her doing it, not because of my parents doing it.
Yeah.
But now that you've been out here, like, do you just see it like embodied in her all the time?
Yeah, she shows up constantly. You were out of town and she tried to show up a bunch of times. I was like, hey, we're okay. I've got this sort of.
But she was super helpful.
Oh, she was extremely helpful. She's always very helpful, and it's great having her here.
If we ever, if we ever had a situation where we had an emergency type of thing, she would show up. She would drop whatever she was doing and
be on her way, pack her bag, and she'd be here.
Like, it's just, my cousin, like, he, not the one that got married, but the older brother.
Yeah, I mean, we called him at 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah, I called him at 8:39.
And wasn't he out of town?
He was out of town for a freaking work conference. Like, at probably like a social event for the work conference.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I have a favor. If you can help, this would be great because I don't know what to do. My father-in-law was in a car accident. I don't know what time. I know what vehicle he was driving. I know he got medevaced. I don't know where he was. And that's pretty much all I know.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, try calling this trauma center first because it's the number one medevac location. If he's not there, call me back and I'll call in some favors. And I called him back and was like, hey, he's not there. And he was like, give me 10 minutes.
Calls back 10 minutes later.
Dude had like 8 minutes later.
Had a case file, talked to the fucking flight medic.
He's like, yeah, I talked to the flight medic. I called one of my state troopers. Like, this is exactly what happened. This is all the information I know.
This is where he's at.
This is the hospital he's at. I've already tried calling. They don't answer their phone. But this is where he was sent to at this time. Like, dude fucking showed up.
Yeah, it was clutch.
Like,
because otherwise we wouldn't have known. My dad wasn't going to tell us where he was.
Yeah, we would not have known. And like, it was such a good feeling to know, like,
we have people that have our backs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have people that, hey, answer the phone when I call. Mm-hmm. Like, that was huge. And like, I am so appreciative to my cousin for that. Yeah. Of like answering the phone and then being not just being like, oh, I don't really know how to help you. Sorry. Like, I'll send up a...
No, he stopped what he was doing and literally made a bunch of phone calls to make, sure
and called
that
in favors.
Just like he doesn't know my dad. Mm-mm. He doesn't know my dad from Matt. He barely knows me, and it didn't matter. He was like, you know what? Let's do this.
I got this.
I'll figure this out. So shout out to your cousin for that, because that was awesome.
Yeah. But I hope so much that our boys get raised with feeling that family shows up.
Agreed.
And I think that will hopefully help them to have a less chaotic childhood than we did in teenage years.
Yeah. Well, on that note, the kids are getting up, so we appreciate you tuning in to us every week or every other week, or when we get around to podcasting. But
thanks for listening.
Thanks everybody for listening. You can check us out at
freezermilk.com
or Instagram.
Freezer Milk Podcast.
Until next week, guys. Thanks.
Don't forget, parenting is a trip. We are all here on the journey with you together. Thanks so much for listening.